all of those prejudicial feelings, there's no room in a situation like we were in. And you realize, not to add a sea story here, but all blood flows red. All blood flows red. You know, all of us want the same thing. I'm convinced of that. We want opportunities for our families. We want opportunities for ourselves. We want to be treated fairly. And I just really do believe that if all of us subscribe to that one philosophy that's common to all the world's religions, it would be a better world, and it's called the Golden Rule.
Alrighty, welcome in. It's your favorite political podcast. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, I'm good, and it makes me feel good to see you wearing a Jackie Robinson T-shirt.
Oh, you like that?
I love Jackie Robinson.
It's a Monarchs shirt too. Got that the other day.
One of my childhood heroes.
Oh,
even
cool.
though even though his career had long been over, but I grew up admiring his career. You know.
That's not what I heard. I heard that you used to go to games and watch it. So that's I'm
not quite that old.
Jackie Robinson's also a favorite of mine. I like a lot of the old baseball history and a lot of the way things went out. I think sports is a good way to track the progress of certain things and through society and stuff. And I think sports is also at times led to a lot of changes. I think one of the things that really helped with the integration of the University of Alabama was the football team there. Now, of course, it happened way too late and only happened because a team rolled in here and beat the hell out of them with black players.
Exactly.
And I think one particular individual gets way too much credit for saying, "Hey, we would like to go get some black players."
It was opportunistic. It was opportunistic.
Yes.
Not altruistic, but opportunistic.
Yeah, the whole story, became, well, he wanted that to happen. That's the reason why he brought the USC team in was, he wanted that to take place. Look, ease up, okay?
Well, I think he may have wanted it, but he wanted it, I suspect, for opportunistic reasons, not altruistic.
Oh, certainly.
Reasons.
Yeah. No, he wasn't exactly like, he wasn't MLK leading the charge out there or anything. He was, he wanted to win some more football games is what he wanted. I mean, just stop it. So, all right, before we get into this and insult other grand historical figures, I need to tell you about our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment who sponsored this podcast. This is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. They do a fantastic job hosting up three great resorts in this state, and they are the largest hospitality employer in the state, one of the largest employers overall in the state. They run a number of businesses around and are great neighbors, and they're great friends of our podcast. They ask for nothing, then they say, "Hey, do your thing," and we enjoy what you're doing, and we would like to help help change the state. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go down tomorrow. And meet with some folks down there, and we're going to talk about what they've been able to do on the reservation and around the state, and hopefully write some stories just about their vision for kind of doing something similar for the state of Alabama, and I'm really looking forward to that. And so, look, they're good folks. Go down and check them out. The three locations in the state: Wetumpka, Montgomery, and Atmore. If you're heading over to a ball game in Auburn or anywhere, if you're heading down to see Troy, headed down to to Alabama State and Montgomery, book a stay at one of the resorts. You will not regret it. They are top notch, fantastic facilities. Look them up online at Wind Creek Entertainment and book you a stay.
Yeah.
All right,
and tell them when you get down there, tell them, hold on, I'm coming. We're about to, me and my family about to line up a trip. My son said he wants to go, so we're about to line up a trip. I think pretty soon here.
All right. When I get down, I'll run through some of the stuff that you need to have happen. All right, look, we're going to get into it here. We're going to be brief, way more brief than usual in the opening segment. We had some tardiness on the front end. We're not going to name any names, but that happens. But we also have a packed show. We got a couple of folks from Southern Poverty Law Center, also great sponsors of the program, and also we are very happy to have with us this week the outgoing president of Troy University. Dr. Jack Hawkins is going to join us in just a few minutes and talk about, they have a documentary about his friendship with and his time in Vietnam, and then his ultimate friendship with a man from Vietnam that they ended up kind of transforming their lives, and and kind of indicative of what has gone on after the war in Vietnam, and the way America has handled that, and the way Vietnam has handled that. And so it's really, really a great story, and Dr. Jack's one of the best, man. He is. If we had any sense, we would have made that man governor a long time ago. But you know how we are. Yeah. So, but before we get into that, I have before we came on all week long, I've called David and sent him messages, and because I've been trying to get him to tone down his rhetoric, because it's just been so toxic, and really, this is what's causing. I think Democrats like us are what is causing Republicans to try to kill the Republican nominee for president.
It's our fault. It clearly is our fault. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we're the reason. Yeah.
What the hell are y'all talking about, man? So there was, they call it an assassination attempt. I don't really think that's the case. It was more this gentleman had concepts of a plan to assassinate. And like Trump's concepts of a plan for healthcare, he had concepts of a plan for assassination. And I assume, I don't know. I mean, he could have been out there, Florida's an open carry state. Maybe he was just worried about, people protecting himself. I don't know. I don't know what he was doing out there, but, this is he was out in the woods by the golf course. Trump was playing golf. They spotted him, ran him off, eventually arrested this guy. And, this would, of course, had he actually taken a shot, would have been the second actual attempt on the life of Donald Trump. And, and in both cases, not exactly your hardline Democrat that's doing the shooting here. Right. But immediately, this turns into a fundraising campaign for the former president, who sends out before the first news stories really even came out, he had already sent out fundraising emails, fundraising off the back of this thing. And, and then the narrative, which has been repeated ad nauseum, including by our lieutenant governor just yesterday, that they're trying, the Democrats want to kill Donald Trump. No. As I've explained many times, Donald Trump is one of the few people who would have lost to Joe Biden. Okay. And so now it's ludicrous what they're talking about here. Yeah. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Well, I think it's like you said in your column, it's like Alexander Shannara telling people to ease up on the billboards. Right. Or Kanye telling everybody to stop it with the weird outfits. I mean, this is not something that Democrats have cooked up, conjured up, and tried to serve. This is a byproduct of probably a couple things. One, some people that are not well, or people that are extreme in their thinking, have twisted thinking, and two, it's the byproduct of the rhetoric that has been generated by, drum roll please, Donald Trump, and anybody who ignores that, I think, is really somewhat delusional, and I apply that to whoever it applies, whether that's our Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth or or GOP chair John Wall or whoever it is, anybody that tries to say that the toxic environment that we're currently in is a byproduct of Democratic Party rhetoric is just delusional. Trump is the only person who has consistently, the only president, I should say, not person, but the only president or former president, well, first as a candidate. In fact, let's go back even further. Before he was a candidate, you know, when he began to promulgate the whole false line about Obama and the birth certificate, or even going back further with the Central Park Five, or the formerly known as Central Park Five. Trump is the only person that has probably tantamount to a 20-year history of just consistent toxicity. And he has done it as he has ascended in the eyes of the public, as he has accrued political power, and he has maintained this position of toxicity, negativity, criticizing people, belittling people, reducing the presidency to high school or maybe middle school with cheap insults of people. He's the only one that's been doing this consistently. He even did it to his own Republican opponents during the first primary that he was a part of. Trump is he's the infant terrible. He's the child. He's the deranged maniac. You know, whatever you want to, you know, we can call him any number of things, but at the very least, and I'll stop with this, Josh, he is the most unpresidential personality we've ever seen at that level. Nobody, not Ronald Reagan, not George Bush, not Bill Clinton, not Barack Obama, you know, none of these people, who have been elected to that office prior to Trump, I don't care what party they were affiliated with, has been as consistently toxic and negative. He's the problem.
Yeah. Yes. That's hi, I'm the problem, it's me, right? I mean, it's it is you're right. I mean, it's just there's a reason why when they held the Republican National Convention a few weeks back, a couple months ago, not a single former Republican president, and there are some still alive, showed up. None of them. Nobody who was a former nominee showed up. There was, Mitt Romney wasn't there. All these folks that have been, presidential candidates. Dick Cheney is now voting for Kamala Harris. Dick Cheney,
right? Dick
Cheney. Which honestly, early 2000s me is somewhat taken aback by that whole thing, and I'm a little confused and starting to wonder if maybe I'm on the wrong side. But just because I've never expected to be on the. Yeah, right. Yes. I mean, I've never expected to be on the side of a war criminal. Seriously though, look at it. Look at what has gone on here. And really, the only people who are still loyal to Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form are those who have elections to lose. And they are, as I think I wrote in the column, they are people who have in the Republican Party as a whole have sold out because they desperately need that deplorable base of people who are attracted to Trump to remain loyal to them as well. So he has been allowed to insult a guy's wife, in public on stage, and talk. Listen, man, I don't care. I don't care who you are. All right. I don't care what the political cost might be. But if you stood up there and said something about my wife's looks,
that's it.
We're going to be on the floor in just a minute. All right. And I guarantee, I may not win, but I'm going to get my shots. All right. I'm going to get my shots. And listen, every time I see you from then on until you apologize as publicly as you said that shit about her, we're going to do it again. every single time. And people are going to be like, dude, you got to let it go. No, not going to let it go. It is so foreign to me and so repulsive to me to watch these people who have been called just vile and disgusting names by this moron of a person, Little Marco and Lying Ted and, and all the other little stupid names that he has for all of these people to now act as though none of that happened or that it was somehow normal. It was all part of politics. No, it's not part of politics. It has never been part of politics to do the stuff that Donald Trump has done. Okay? Ever. And, I understand that was part of the attraction of some of the people. Well, you've got this guy coming in who's not beholden to the system and, he's going to say what's on his mind and it's going to be, he's going to do whatever. And this is all part of that persona. I get it, but that don't make it okay. And on the backside of it, it doesn't now excuse this behavior and absolve him of responsibility for what's going on in terms of the environment. Now, I've seen people say, and I think this is too far on the left. Well, he brought this on himself. I can't get behind anybody bringing on themselves an assassination attempt. Okay. I mean, that's just, no, there are people out there with problems that are going to be, that are going to have issues like that. And they're to blame for their own actions. All right. But now in terms of the toxic level of discourse and things like that, he is 100% responsible. As far as this person who has a history of mental illness, being able to obtain a weapon of war that he was carrying around with him, and legally carrying around with, I don't even know what they could charge the guy with. Trespassing? I know DeSantis is, we're going to charge him with attempted murder. For what? What are you going to charge him with attempted murder for?
Yeah, how can you justify that? The guy didn't fire a shot. He was just
he didn't fire a shot. Yeah. He was in an open carry state on in public, from what I understand, because he was on the outside of the fence, right? And so, what law did the man break?
Yeah, I mean,
this. Listen, I'm not saying that it was right what's happening. I'm saying it's 100% wrong. But Democrats have been trying to tell y'all this for years, okay? That you got to stop this nonsense with the guns.
I want to go back to something you said earlier that I think we should challenge, and that is the idea that Republicans need this segment of the voting base. I think that's an unproven theory. I think we have all assumed it. I think they assume it. And I think consequently we've assumed it. But I don't know that we've really tested it out. In other words, the Republican Party has not walked away they have not overtly, incontrovertibly walked away from that segment of their base. So we don't actually know what the result would be if they just said, you know what, we're cutting with the crazies, we're cutting with the extremists, the racists, the bigots, the vile, sadists. We're gonna walk away from these people, and we're gonna go back to the days when the Republican Party had some common sense and had some dignity about itself, with values that, I think some relatable values, and then some values that, you and I, meaning you and me, Josh, wouldn't agree with, but at the very least, they would be people that you could say, well, I can respect you even if I disagree with you. I think they should try it and see what happens. And some are trying to do it, in their own way, but they haven't done it as a party. And I'd like to see them try it and see what happens.
Well, I think their fear is, because I don't necessarily disagree with you, because I do think that there is those people, if they change that position, they could be replaced by more right-leaning centrists who would come on board again with the party and say, okay, I can get back with this new Republican Party. Their fear, of course, is that those people would go somewhere else, and that those people. Yeah, because those people are essentially malleable people. I mean, they're going to be led by whatever beliefs are out there, and they're going to be easily misled into different things. And so,
but I'm saying, is it? I mean, they're to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong because I'm I don't follow them so closely that I would know this, but I wonder, whether or not it's quantifiable that the Republican Party cannot exist or cannot be competitive unless they have that extreme MAGA faction.
No, I don't think they can. I mean, I think if you look at the numbers nationally, you look at the voting, how people are voting. I think that, first of all, we look at the national race and right now, Trump's only pathway to victory is losing the popular vote.
Mm-hmm. But how many of those people, though, Josh, are holding their nose and voting for Trump? I guess that's what I'm saying. Because you hear stories we've heard stories throughout his political career, which is relatively short, about people that'll say, yeah, he's vile, or yeah, he's a jackass, or whatever they say. But then they say, but I'm going to vote for him because he's going to do what we want in terms of getting Supreme Court justices on, or he's going to cut my taxes, or he's going to whatever, or my stock portfolio did well under him, so I'm going to vote for him again. How many of those people are really Trump enthusiasts, and how many of those people are just doing it because they feel like he fits some agenda item on their checklist?
Well, I think you're right about that. I think that there are a lot of people who do that. Yes, Trump is obviously a unique candidate in that regard. But I think overall, I mean, you go back to George Bush and some of the other things. I don't think that the Republican Party. You look at all the gerrymandering that's taking place. The problem that they're having right now is that the Republicans don't have policies that are popular with the American people. That's their biggest issue right now. They have to be the party of anti whatever the Democrats are doing. And then they have to use these social issues, these culture war type issues to attract other voters. And I think a portion of that is attracting those deplorable people that we're now talking about, because if they lose those folks, I don't know that they can withstand some of the challenges that would come, not just at the national level in a presidential race, but also in congressional races, in Senate races, and other races like that, which is where you see some of the absolute worst behavior. All right. I mean, Trump is an anomaly at the presidential level, in terms of the candidates that are Republicans would ordinarily choose. It would not ordinarily be somebody that vile and that disgusting. But at these other levels, that's where you get into some of these people who are just fucking nuts, man. So I think that's where they have those concerns, is if they lose those people and they lose the ability to get those folks elected, they have an issue. They have a bad issue.
How much of this do you think? Okay, so that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it like that. But how much of that do you think is really a reflection of what you and I see in in Alabama and other former Confederate states versus what you see when you get out of these former Confederate states and into more, I'll say, mainstream America, where the Republican Party still has, where people are still voting for Trump and other Republicans?
Honestly, man, there's some crazy people from a lot of states. I mean, California's got some really crazy people. There's some of those folks from Montana and Wyoming are sometimes, a little out there, and you'll get some from, the guy from New York, Santos. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, you end up with, with people that are kind of off the charts. I understand what you're saying, but, listen, across Ohio, Indiana, those Midwestern states, that there are oftentimes, some real cuckoo birds. The guy that's currently the VP, who is, the more he talks, the more people hate him because of his crazy ideas. I think that's a big problem. But hey, I tell you what, we gotta slide out though. We've gone too long because I'm sorry. We got some folks from SPLC coming in, and we can pick it up though on the back side of everything, because I know we're gonna name a right wing nut, and it's gonna be kind of related to this. So let's slide out. We'll come back in just a minute with the SPLC folks and talk about voting and some voting efforts. This is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to have with us. Every now and then we go international. All right, we go. You tune into this and you hear my redneck voice, and you automatically think this thing is going to be dumb. And then David talks, and it picks it up a few IQ points. Okay, it does. It automatically picks it up. But now we're going to go all the way to high IQ. So listen, if you're dumb, you can stop listening, all right? Because you're probably these folks are going to come in and we're going off the charts, because we have with us now Celsa Stallworth, who's with the SPLC. She's one of the state organizers of the SPLC, and Carlos Torres, who is let me make sure I have you right. You're with the Hispanic Immigrant Center of Alabama, the director. Is that right?
I serve as Director of Policy and Strategic Partnerships.
Director of Policy and Strategic. See, I mean, it's we've gone to the top here and got folks in, because look, what we wanted to talk with y'all about is where we are in this state right now, in terms of voter engagement with the Hispanic community who is there, and the immigrant community overall. Because there have been a lot of attacks. I think that of late, there have been a lot of attacks on Haitian immigrants that we've seen. But this state has a long history of not discriminating who we discriminate against, okay? And especially when it comes to immigrants. As a matter of fact, that's the only thing we don't discriminate against, is how we discriminate. And so I guess... we can start with you, Carlos, and then we'll get Celsa as well. And just where are we in terms of voter engagement? Because I know that's a big focus for both of y'all. And how is that looking, and what can we do, if anything, to make it better?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Josh. I'll tell you that in the state of Alabama, here at the Hispanic and Immigrant Center, we are focused on civic engagement, making sure that our constituents are registered to vote, that the people that have that opportunity actually exercise it. In the state of Alabama, there are close to 88,000 folks that are eligible to vote who are Latino, Hispanic. And I'll tell you that out of those, only 48,000 are actually registered to vote. And as of the year 2022, only 22,000 showed up to the polls for that midterm election year. So we take it upon ourselves to really help people understand the importance of exercising that right, and making sure that we take the steps to show up to the polls and make sure that our values and our thinking is represented where it counts the most, which is the polling place.
Right. So how do you, as an organizer, I know you're out there on the ground all the time and trying to make this happen. Not that Carlos is not, but I know that's your job with SPLC, is trying to get these folks out. Where are you? I mean, what can you do to increase those numbers?
Wow. I love that question, because I want to answer it. So, like you said, I'm a grassroots organizer. I'm on the ground. And the benefit and the joy of getting to know and speak with people about what they're going through. They come to me and it might be an issue about the school system, of how they're not able to engage as parents because of language access, or, they're having trouble on their county road. I live in rural Alabama again. And when they're having these conversations with me, I automatically, it's like, well, what are we going to do to fix it, right? And I could definitely civic engagement, the importance of voting locally, and just bringing it back down to what their concerns are. If it's a parent and their concerns about their children, the importance of having, members of the school board that's going to reflect our values, so it can be all inclusive in the community. So grassroots organizing is it's just a big tool that we can utilize, and listening to our community. And when you listen to our community, that person is empowered and they can go and share that information and how they're going to do it. So you might touch 3-4 people, but ultimately they're going to touch even more. So that's organizing, right? The relationship building.
So, Celsa, I want to follow up on that. I know that the Hispanic community is no more monolithic than any other community. So how do you deal with the cultural differences, the dialect differences, in order to achieve those goals?
Have an open mind, willing to listen, and not listen to respond, but listen to learn, right? And embracing our beauty and flourishing culture. I learned to love arepas, Colombian coffee. Oh my goodness. Just engaging with the different communities of South and Central America. It's wonderful. My heritage is Mexican, and I love my heritage and sit in who I am, and I'm willing to share it when I'm around different diverse cultures, and I want to learn from them. So that opens the door. Music, laughter, and food in our cultures, that's a language itself. So yes.
Mm-hmm.
David, I appreciate that question very much. Sorry to jump in, because the fact that we, as Latinos, as Hispanics in the state of Alabama, come from so many different countries, from Mexico to Ecuador to Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico. There are so many different cultural backgrounds that come together as one through the language, which is what unites us. But there are times when we're trying to reach out to the community, we need to meet people where they are at, which is actually what Celsa was actually getting to. We know that people from different countries and from different parts of different countries may have different levels of access to education, so they may not be as familiar with the system in their own country, much less when they come to a new country like the United States. So it is important that we then take the time to share about how our process works. For example, the fact that in the United States, only citizens are allowed to register and exercise their right to vote. This is important that we highlight it so nobody gets in trouble by trying to register to vote in an election if they are not eligible. The other part of this is helping people understand, that in a general election year, yes, we vote for the president and the vice president, and we elect our senators and Congress people. But we also have to pay attention to those, like Celsa said, those down ballot races for the city council, for the school boards. And people may need to do a little bit of digging and researching to try and understand how their opinions and how their perspective should help frame the conversation at the political level, so that then the representatives that are at the table speaking on our behalf that we elect can represent how we feel and the things that we believe in.
Yeah, kind of going back to what David said. We have some of our really good friends are Puerto Rican. We met them a couple years ago when our daughter started school here in Limestone County. And right, as a matter of fact, my daughter is with them and their grandparents right now because they're out of school today for some random reason. But it's we've coming to learn that culture a little bit because I'm a dumb American from Alabama, and and we you hear a lot about the statehood for Puerto Rico, and we talked to them. Oh, matter of fact, we went on vacation together not too long ago, and we were talking to them about that, and I had no idea there's a whole debate that takes place in Puerto Rico over whether or not they want statehood or they don't want statehood, and and I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying about these. The differences between the folks in in those communities and how you can reach them and how you can talk to them, and man, it's got to be at times y'all's job's got to be pretty tough, right? I mean, it's trying to balance everything and at the same time just get people out and express their self-interest through the voting booth. Is that am I wrong about that or?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I'm from Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican. And I'll tell you that, the political situation of the island, we are a Commonwealth of the United States. We're actually a territory of the United States. The debate between statehood or remaining a Commonwealth has been, it's a century-old debate. Congress is the only tool or resource that can actually put a stop to that conversation and make a decision. But in the meantime, we enjoy a close relationship with the United States. We obviously are born U.S. citizens. We can come and go from the island. We share the same currency. We share military defense. So when we join the army, we join the armed forces. We join on behalf of the United States. But we also have a separate Olympic team that goes to the Olympics from Puerto Rico. So this is how the richness of our relationship goes. So I appreciate that very much.
Sure. All right, let me just ask y'all: what can people do to help, to get involved? How can they get in touch with y'all? How can they give? How can they do whatever that you need to help?
Well, I have a call to action. I just want to remind everyone that to be active, civically, whether you're able to vote or for some reason or other you're not able to, you can still speak to someone about what values, what issues are going on in your community. You can still pick up your phone and text or call someone, hey, tomorrow is November the 5th. Are you going out to vote? Hey, did you vote already? Send me a picture of the sticker, of you voting. Can you imagine sending that to 5 people? Maybe you weren't able to cast your vote in that election, but you mobilized 5 people. That is a huge power that we have right there, because we were engaging. So that, and then also when you do see, posts on social media, share them so that your friends and your community can see that. There's a huge push at SPLC. We have the Spanish campaign Decidimos, and we are posting a lot of Instagram and on Facebook online so it can be shared. And it's information that's not going to overwhelm anyone. It's not like pages long. No, it's just, letting you know the voting days throughout the states in the Southeast, and of course in Alabama. October the 21st is the last day to register, so you're able to vote in this election. How to check your voter registration status, and any things that might be going on that might limit anyone's voting or accessibility to the voting box. So just keep that in mind. Having that conversation, every time you have the conversation, it makes it easier to speak about it. You get comfortable having that conversation with other people. So it's going to feel awkward at first. Go out to vote. You're like, oh my goodness, they're telling me to vote again. No, but conversation is a great thing.
Sure. Hey, Carlos, how can folks support y'all in what you're doing?
So the first thing, obviously, I would echo the same call that Celsa made about engaging in the election process, supporting your neighbors and friends and family members to participate. Specifically for HICA, the Hispanic and Immigrant Center of Alabama. If you don't know about us, if you haven't contacted us before, do go to Google and type HICA, HICA, and the first thing that will come up is our organization. We have a website that has information about the work that we do. We have 4 programs, and we offer different services to the community. Out of that website, you can find the link to make donations, to make contributions to our mission. We also have a very active Facebook page with more than 10,000 followers, where people can find information about, things that are up and coming, opportunities to volunteer through us so that you can help us in the community engagement work. Also, you can actually volunteer at HICA. We have a very strong and robust internship program that people can sign up for. And both college students, high school students, adults can actually volunteer with us to participate in events and make sure that we rally our support for the Latino community. You mentioned earlier, we have had situations that come up about, maybe discrimination or rhetoric that is actually more about division than what brings us together. There are so many opportunities for us to really show up and make sure that we support folks who may be feeling uncomfortable, who may be feeling left out because these conversations can be so destructive, where we can actually put a change to that, make a change at the individual level and let that actually resonate at the community level. Because what we have is a community that is very loving, that is Christian, that is embracing, that many times people are willing to take their shirts off their backs to help you. But then we find ourselves in groups and we start acting and talking in a tone that's different, that does not match that set of values. So let's go ahead and really look at, who am I and who do I want to be in front of my friends and family, and how do I want to show up in community? And so that would be one of the things that I would ask for. Contribute to our mission. Obviously, any monetary contributions help us do the work that we need to do at the community level. But more important than all, when you talk about your life, use the same values that you use for yourself and your family when you're dealing with folks who look and sound different from you.
Right. Listen, Carlos and Celsa, thank y'all so much for coming on and spending some time. And we'll put the links up with this when we post it and send folks your way. And hopefully this will be something that pushes folks to get involved and get their voices heard out there, because we desperately need it. But really, really appreciate y'all coming by and spending some time.
Absolutely.
Thank you all, David
Thank
and Josh.
you, David
Appreciate
and
you all.
Josh.
Thanks.
All right, Carlos.
Thank you, guys.
Celsa.
Thank you, guys. That
Always
is
a pleasure.
Celsa Stallworth and Carlos Torres from HICA and from SPLC. We're gonna slide out. We're gonna come back in just a couple of minutes. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and man, I can't tell you how happy we are now to have with us possibly our most distinguished guest ever. He's certainly going to rank in the top three because he's, for my money, the best, just the absolute best. Is Dr. Jack Hawkins, president of Troy University, and Dr. Hawkins, I got to tell you, it is an honor to get you on here. As before you leave out after what is just a fantastic legacy there at Troy. But thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us.
Well, thank you, Josh. It's I read your work, I admire you, and I am honored to be with you today. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And listen, and you read that exactly as I sent it to you. And I really appreciate that. Before we get into, I know that we're really wanting to talk about the documentary that's coming out and stuff. But before we get to that, I wanted to just ask you about, stepping down there at Troy. And after all these many years, and I told David before we came on here that if we had any sense as a state, we would have made you governor a long time ago. But I'm sure you've got too much sense to have ever accepted it. But at the same time, leaving Troy after all these years, after all that growth, after everything that you've seen, I mean, what are the emotions there?
Well, it's there's always a season, and I think that we've lived through many seasons, wonderful seasons. I graduated college 57 years ago, and I've served 4 great institutions: the United States Marine Corps, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Alabama Institute for Deaf and Blind, but for now more than 35 years, Troy University. It has been a a wonderful experience. We'll never leave Troy. We're Trojans through and through. And so I plan to be engaged, maybe in more of an advisory role than an active duty role, but we will never leave this university. We love it. We believe in it. And I think there's much yet to be done. So I'm just changing gears, I think.
Right. Well, one of the things, you have, we've spoken before. I did an interview with you a few years back about your time in Vietnam. And I know your time in the military is a source of pride for you. And then, I was unaware of this relationship when we talked initially that you have with the gentleman from Vietnam. That is essentially the focus of this documentary. It's called Beyond the War. And it, I guess, kind of, if you wouldn't mind, I know it comes out on the 29th of this month. Could you tell people kind of what the documentary is about?
I would be pleased to. I left Vietnam, arrived there in early '68, left there in the spring of '69. And when I left, I never intended to go back. But I did go back in '02, and we set up academic programs in Hanoi, which was the capital of old North Vietnam. And in fact, my first hotel stay in Hanoi, I looked out the window and I could have thrown a stone to hit the Hanoi Hilton, where those wonderful men like John McCain and Jeremiah Denton and so many of our POWs spent all those years. And then we moved from Hanoi down to Saigon, now called Ho Chi Minh City. We set up those academic programs. In 2008, Troy became the first American university to ever award the bachelor's degree in Vietnam. And since that time, we've graduated over 2,000 alumni. Currently, we have about 1,200 students on the ground throughout the country. Typically, about 100 will come to Troy, having started with us in Vietnam. But something really unique happened in 2017. I was in country and was invited to have dinner with a gentleman who had established a private university in Da Nang, which is about midway, and many people have heard of China Beach. Da Nang is really a beautiful city on the coast. And he wanted to have dinner to talk about a partnership. Now, what became very, very clear to me quickly was that he had fought as a Viet Cong soldier during the war. And so that put us on opposite sides. I'd served in the Marine Corps, and he was a Viet Cong, and often we would engage each other. I don't know that he and I ever engaged each other, but that was the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. Of course, the Viet Cong were the insurgents during that war. And but we did form a partnership, and it has moved along very, very well. We have students in Da Nang in addition to Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. But about 2.5 years ago, his family wanted to capture this unique story, and so they commissioned a film crew, a Vietnamese film crew, and they did a documentary. And that exposed me to the censorship that occurs in places like Vietnam, but it made its way through. It aired in the Central Highlands in late 2023, and then it was released. It was shown over national television in Vietnam in January of this year, and it was so well received that during the showing, or the airing on TV, the former president of Vietnam, President Phuc, actually called Dr. Hong Lê, the daughter of Lê Thang Co, the founder. And he said this. He said, this needs to be shown in both countries because there's an element of reconciliation seldom seen. And so it was released to the U.S., and it was reviewed by by the board of the Vietnam Veterans of America in Washington, endorsed by that board. And they've since released it. The Vietnamese embassy is very much familiar with this. And we decided to have an American premiere, the U.S. premiere, on, as you mentioned, September the 29th, the afternoon at the Davis Theater in Montgomery. Speakers during that documentary premiere will include Jack McManus, the chairman of the board of the Vietnam Veterans of America, and several others, but in particular, Michael Gary Rose, who is one of only 27 living recipients of the Medal of Honor. And Gary received that for his service in the Vietnam War. And so we're excited. I think beyond that point, I think Alabama Public Television plans to air it maybe during November, consistent with the Veterans Day activities. Then it takes on, it may take on legs of its own nationally. And so we're excited to premiere that story, but it really does, the title is Beyond a War, but the subtitle is Wars Begin and End, but Love and Relationships Last Forever.
I've got to ask
We all know pardon me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've got to ask you, well, I've got a lot of things I'd like to ask you, but we only have limited time. But I want to start really with what led you to connect Troy University with Vietnam in this way. Why? Was it because of your personal experience, or was there something else that was at the root of that?
Well, when I arrived in Troy, we were in 10 countries, 26 military bases throughout Europe. And when the Berlin Wall came down and the Soviet Union fell apart, the troop strength in Europe downsized by 2/3. We repositioned ourselves, and we didn't see the future as being in Europe. We saw the future as being in Asia. And so we began then to plan a strategy. And our strategy was threefold. And our goal, though, was to graduate globally competitive students. I don't think you can be globally competitive if you're not globally aware. And so at the time when I arrived in Troy, we only had 40 international students. By the time COVID hit, we had 75 countries represented here and over 400 from China alone. And so our activities began to really diversify. But I do believe this, one of our great challenges, and Josh, I know you subscribe to this, one of our great challenges in America, and in particular in the Deep South, has been ignorance of each other. I am convinced when we understand differences, we can find appreciation in those differences. And that's been our philosophy at Troy. When you bring students together from all over the world, they have an opportunity to understand, which always precedes appreciation. Then relationships are formed in a very natural sort of way. And that's why I'm so proud of what we've been able to see happen in Troy. There's diversity that's unequaled on most college campuses across this country, and it's healthy. Now, people are not being forced to know each other. They know each other through contact. It's like a beautiful piece of fabric made up of different colors of thread. You weave it, not only is it a lot more interesting, but it's a lot stronger. And that's one reason we've done this. We had a three-pronged strategy. One, to bring the world to Troy. Two, to plant our flag in other places. We've done that, Vietnam being one of those places. And three, to send our students, and we have an aggressive study abroad program that's funded through the CARTAG program. I think it may be the only one in America, but every student at Troy is eligible every year for a $1,250 study abroad scholarship. And that has enabled so many kids who have never gone outside the country to have that international experience. I love America, but I never love America more than when I'm not here. I'm there looking back.
So, Dr. Hawkins, your outlook strikes me as being remarkably, I might even say astoundingly, progressive. You know, we live in a time, as you know, where in Albertville, Athens, Sylacauga, we are castigating Haitian people. Other parts of the country, Haitian people are being castigated, Asian people are being castigated. How did you arrive at this sort of global progressive point of view in a state that's so red and a culture that's so red and so anti that kind of thinking?
Well, what an insightful question. And in my experience, I never went to an integrated school. My college integrated while I was there because it recruited 2 African American basketball players. That was the first time of integration until I became a platoon leader, arrived in Vietnam, and my platoon was about 25-30% African American, about 15% Latino, and the rest, Caucasians. And what you learn in a situation like that, all of those prejudicial feelings, there's no room in a situation like we were in. And you realize, not to add a sea story here, but all blood flows red. All blood flows red. All of us want the same thing. I'm convinced of that. We want opportunities for our families. We want opportunities for ourselves. We want to be treated fairly. And I just really do believe that if all of us subscribe to that one philosophy that's common to all the world's religions, it would be a better world, and it's called the Golden Rule.
Amen. Amen. Love it.
You understand now, David, why I said if we had any sense at all, we would have made the man governor a long time ago. I mean, I do. It's just,
I do.
Honestly, this is not. It's a shame that to get somebody like Dr. Hawkins on and hear him say this, and it be not out of the ordinary necessarily, but so you don't hear it enough. You just don't hear it enough. This kind of compassionate speak about learning about other cultures and about other things, and Dr. Hawkins, I know we need to get you out of here because I know you got a whole university to run still for a little while longer, and but we're going to send as many people as we possibly can to this thing, and and to make sure everybody gets to see it. I really appreciate what you've done. I appreciate the vision that you've had, and I can't imagine. And really, last question from me: when you think about, you named off all these numbers, all the 1,200 the students that that can go, the thousands of kids that have gone on these different places, the folks from China, the folks from Vietnam, all the numbers. But what struck me is in every number, that's a human being that is going to be touched by other people from other cultures that have learned, a lot of those folks coming over here and learn the value of democracy and learn the value of having the voice, like we have in our government, and they take that and they've spread it around the world. When you think about that, and let me just ask it this way, have you considered your impact that you've had by doing these programs on thousands and thousands of people and what it will mean ultimately to generations of people? Have you considered that?
Well, you go through life and you do what you believe in, and I certainly believe in service. I believe in the need for leadership. It was Thomas Jefferson who said one of the greatest challenges we'll face in the preservation of this delicate thing called a democracy, and it is delicate, is the shortage of leaders with integrity, ability, and vision. And as I think about, the world around us, and you hit on this key point, we're more divided as a nation than I can remember in my lifetime right now. And we need strong leadership who can pull us together as a people. That's the great thing that I hope is in our future. But it's seldom that I think about that kind of thing. I'm just grateful to have had an opportunity and to continue. I'm not in my grave yet. This is just a chapter, and
Sure.
But I want to continue to help our people in this state and beyond if I can. But you can't lead if you can't serve, and I really do believe, whether you're religious or not, what's captured in the book of Matthew is true. And that is, I came not to be served, but to serve. That's the philosophy we try to take at Troy University. I preached our trustees and our faculty and staff that the most important responsibility we have is the preservation of this culture, the perpetuation of this culture that we think is very special.
Well, listen, I from me personally, I appreciate everything that you've done. You know, and it's honestly, it's an honor to get you on here and to talk to you a little bit with all that you've accomplished and everything. You know, I congratulate you on all of it and wish you so well. And we're going to do everything we can to promote the documentary. So maybe it'll inspire some other people to do the same thing. I know you've got a big fan, and some other university presidents. My good friend of mine that runs Alabama State University couldn't speak more highly of you. And so listen, I think that maybe this will inspire a lot of other folks to go that way. And man, we sure do need it. And so just thank you for what you've done and for spending some time with us.
Well, it's really a pleasure to be with you. It's a privilege to have this exchange, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think President Quentin Ross is the right man at the right time. I love that man.
Thank you, sir. That is Dr. Jack Hawkins, president of Troy University. It's been an honor to have him on and to just watch him work. So we're going to come back in just a few minutes. Alabama Politics This Week, back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. I'd like to thank our friends at Wind Creek for sponsoring this week, our friends at SPLC, who also provided us with two fantastic guests, in Carlos Torres and Celsa Stallworth. Really appreciate them coming on, and I hope y'all do follow through and help them out with what they're trying to do. They're good people. You know, they're not trying to influence votes. They're just trying to get people to vote. You know, they're just trying to get people to vote. And I think that is something that everybody should be behind. Every single person. I've never understood these people who discourage voting, who don't want certain people to vote. I want everybody to vote. I don't care if you agree with me. I don't care if we have differences. I want you to vote your interests. I want you to go out, pick out candidates that resemble the things that you find to be most valuable, or the problems that you want to address the most in your community, in your life, the things that keep you up at night. Find people who reflect those values that you have and vote for them. Vote. Yeah. Make your voices heard.
Democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. And also Dr. Hawkins, man.
Great man.
Just the best. Just the
Great
best.
man.
I mean, it was, God, we'd have been so better off if we'd had somebody like that leading the state. And we all took his kind of vision and pushed it forward.
And you said that he actually did want to run or considered running?
I think he had some aspirations for higher office at one time, you know, and I think we would have been well served had we gone that direction. I think everybody just heard him, and you know what values he holds and what he thinks is important in this world. And I would dare say that it would be something that we don't practice enough as we castigate Haitians and Hispanics and blacks and everybody else in this state for differences and judge people upon based on the color of their skin and all sorts of other ridiculous things that don't really matter. And now you got this guy at Troy who just says, listen, if we could just kind of come together and meet everybody and learn about one another, we could come to some understandings and do better and treat each other better. You know, what a different state we would be, you know, with somebody like that in charge. And God, it would have been so nice. But the folks at Troy have had him. They're lucky to have had him. What they've been able to do in spreading that university around the globe, bringing in so many thousands of different students and stuff. Listen, I meant what I said. I mean, I'm not hyping the guy up. I think it is. Just a remarkable lifetime accomplishment to have taken that university and spread it around and to have accepted so many foreign students into this state. Listen, I understand that makes money for Troy, but to have the wherewithal to go into the Asian countries and to expand this university that, you know, from this country, this, you know, teaching, you know, whatever we're teaching and to expand that and offer it into those countries and give those folks a little taste of what it's like here and, you know, to invite them here and then to send our folks over there and, you know, and to share, you know, back and forth. It's it's changed lives. It's changed the course of whole cultures. It's just something that will he should be remembered for forever. And everybody should be lucky enough to affect people in such a way, in such a positive way. So,
That's
really
impressive.
happy that it is. And I wish him well. I wish Troy well, in trying to replace him. God bless the man who tries, or woman, who tries. And, it's going to be something else, but, all right. So we got really, just to wrap this thing up, and we're going to kind of get back into what we opened with, which was the kind of the discourse and where the Republican Party is, because we're going to talk about the leader of the Republican Party in this state, John Wall, and his comments of blaming Democrats for two Republicans trying to kill the Republican nominee, and John Wall's a right wing nut this week, and so it just man. I understand the political nature of it. I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but it's just so ludicrous. It's so ludicrous that you're standing there with Trump, who has insulted 90% of the people that you're in the party with, in party leadership with, watching what he did to Jeff Sessions, for example, who is, who's still a member of that party, watching, what he's done to so many different people around. And then to come out and act as though, somehow it's Democrats' fault for calling Donald Trump a threat to American democracy. He didn't leave.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He's the first one ever to not leave. He wanted to fight. He led a coup against the country, a legitimate coup. He wanted to use military force. If he could have just gotten a couple of people in Congress to go along with him and Mike Pence to go along with him, then they would have pulled off a coup in this country, and he would not have left office. I don't understand what people miss about that.
Yeah, and it's laughable. I'm looking at his statement here that you quoted in your column. He says the open hatred and villainization of Donald Trump by Democratic leaders and leftists in the mainstream media has created an environment where political violence is becoming disturbingly normalized. That's a laughable statement.
Yes.
That's a laughable statement. First of all, Trump is the one, and everybody knows this. This is, anybody who thinks otherwise is in deep denial that Trump is the first candidate for public office in recent memory, certainly the first elected candidate or elected official who has continuously used hateful language, who has villainized people himself, in ways that have been astounding and jaw-dropping, and not just political opponents, but people that have no political power at all. People that have been much more honorable than he, like Gold Star families and people that people that I don't agree with or didn't agree with, like John McCain. My God, the things he said about John McCain, shameful. Shame. You talk about villainization, shameful.
I like soldiers who weren't captured.
It's laughable, Josh. It's laughable. It's outrageous that Wall could open his mouth and say this, and then to try to suggest that Democrats and so-called leftists have created an environment where political violence is becoming disturbingly normalized. Where's the proof of that? I'd like to see some direct evidence of that right there. He doesn't have any. He's not going to be able to produce any. At least not of people that have been elected officials or appointed officials who actually represent the Democratic Party or who actually represent so-called mainstream media. There may be some fringe people out there saying really crazy things, sure. There may be some people that are sometimes we kind of colloquially call them civilians, but people that are not, actually political operatives or appointed officials or elected officials saying some things. But you can't count those people. I'm talking about people that actually represent a party or represent a media organization that is a legitimate, viable media organization. He's got zero proof of that.
No, there's no one on the left equivalent to the worst 10% of the folks on the right. There's no one on the left that are that bad, that would come out and say something. I watched yesterday. I watched a questioning from John Kennedy, the United States Senator from Louisiana, a person who went to one of the better law schools. And I can't remember if it was Yale or Harvard or one. He was got this is a smart person out here who has chosen to be a dipshit in public, and he was questioning a witness that they were talking about Middle Eastern issues and specifically about Hamas and Hezbollah. And this woman was, she was advocating for Middle Easterners. And she was basically, he continued to ask her over and over and over again if she supported Hamas.
One more time, you support Hamas, don't you? You support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir,
Please.
I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support Hamas.
Bring yourself
I do
to
not
say
support Hamas.
You don't
or
support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. You don't.
I was very clear in my support for UNRWA.
Hezbollah, and you don't support Iran. You should hide your head in a bag.
Your time has expired. Please.
And that is where we have gone to this level of vile, toxic commentary from people in positions of power on the right. And then to excuse it, they will find the most obscure person that shares an opposing viewpoint from them. And it often is just some dude walking down the street or something that has said this or that about these things. And they will equate those two things when there's no equating them. There's no way to equate the power held by someone like Kennedy saying these things and castigating this woman and making it seem as though any idea of human rights bestowed upon the people of Palestine or anyone who has been wronged. And listen, let me tell you that as I've said before, I think there were some atrocious actions from both sides of this thing that's taking place right now. Some atrocious actions, and we should do everything we can to bring a stop to it. However, we can bring a stop to it. Whether it's stopping with the weapons, whether it's stopping with whatever we could do. Right. Listen, dude, the blowing up of the pagers. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, is it 24 TV show level kind of, cool? Yeah, okay, maybe. If you're convinced that everybody that had a pager that day was a bad guy, and not somebody's kid who might have been playing with the pager or, something along those lines. You know what I mean? And so, but, to do that and to just to say that about these people and to portray them in such a way and to vilify Haitians in this country to a degree where, we've had to shut down schools and colleges, because of the hate that's taking place now. That you vilify these people who we invited here. We invited these people here.
That's right. And they act like that's not a part of the equation. which is why I'm so glad every time I see somebody from, these stories about the people that are rallying behind the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, to support Haitian restaurants, or who are speaking out in the media, white people that are doing it, because it shows the absurdity and the immorality, really, of what J.D. Vance and Trump and others have been promulgating. I'm going to say this, and I know we're going to have to get out of here pretty soon, but I'm going to say this. I absolutely would refuse to sit there and let some jerk like Kennedy act like a fool and talk to me that way. I would not allow it. I would not accept it. I would, if he threw a punch at me, I'd throw 10 at him, and I'd probably get up and walk out, and he'd be talking to the back of my behind.
Yeah,
because I absolutely would not sit there and tolerate that kind of craziness.
But she was professional. She was cordial.
Well, I would have walked out.
I know. And this was the point I was going to make about that is we have reached a point now where Kennedy is more rewarded for acting like a jackass to that lady than she is for being cordial and professional.
Yeah.
And even when Dick Durbin gave her an opportunity, because Kennedy kept cutting her off, gave her, after his time was up, he gave her an opportunity to respond to anything she wanted to respond to. She remained professional. She didn't attack him. She didn't go after him. She just said that she would hope that people would take from this, the need for these types of things so we can all better understand each other.
But you know what, Josh? Doggone it. I think it's past time for us to stop tolerating that kind of egregious, toxic showboating. Yep. I don't care if it's coming from Trump or one of these senators. I think people need to start standing up to these people toe to toe. I'm not saying use demeaning language or anything like that, but I'm saying we ought to be calling out that kind of behavior right on the spot in real time. And refuse to accept it, refuse to normalize it. We got to challenge that stuff, man.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. And it's just, God, it's just such a, he's made us sink so low, and he's lowered everybody on that side. Once you back him, you're basically accepting that level of discourse, that level of childishness. You're accepting of it at that point. You own it. And the Republican Party right now owns that level of discourse, that childish behavior, that deplorable treatment of people, that just the way that so many folks have been, just cast as villains for no reason other than they come from a different country, they speak a different language, they have a skin color that is darker than yours. I mean, that is, those things have been, they've used them now for a long, long time to basically cast people as villains and to stoke fear among a voting base that are easily afraid, apparently. I've never known such snowflakes, in my life. I mean, to be scared of these people that are coming in and to have this thing stoked, it just is. But again, it all goes back to one thing. They have no policies. They have no policies to make your life as a working person in this state better. They have zero. They have none. Everything they come up with, everything they say has been stolen from the Democrats. From Trump now wanting to not tax overtime. I don't know who came up with that. I believe that might have been pretty local here with Anthony Daniels. To all of these other things. Now they want a child tax credit, the same one that they killed after the COVID stuff was over with, and we had to we're going to change that up, and they killed that in the new package. They stripped it out. It's one of the things that Republicans stripped out, the Democrats wanted in. It just that's what we're dealing with. Is we have people who are relying on fear to get themselves elected.
Yep.
All right, that's all they're doing, and they're scaring you over Haitians, over Hispanics, over whatever, man. Whatever group of people they've named, and you have far more reason to fear these Stephen Ash Republicans than you ever did any Haitians. All right.
Well, it's the same playbook that has worked in this state and other neo-Confederate states. Well, it's really worked all over the nation. But I think in particular, it's been extremely successful in the neo-Confederate states like Alabama. Same playbook. Just divide based on race, divide based on class, create a hierarchy where working class whites and poor whites and middle class whites can feel threatened by people whose skin color is darker, whose hair texture is different, who come from different countries. This is not new. It's all old school. I'm going to just say it's old school white racist politics.
Yep. Sure is. Sure is. Old as time itself. So, yeah. Well, listen, I think we've given these people way too much. Listen, we've got 4 segments here now. I mean, that's one more than we ever promised. So, all right, let's get out of here. Till next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.